He was once one of the UK's most feared crime bosses, a man who thought he was untouchable. Thomas Kavanagh, the 57-year-old head of the UK arm of the Kinahan cartel, made millions importing drugs and firearms into Britain. But his empire came crashing down when the National Crime Agency exposed his multi-million-pound operations. Already serving 21 years, Kavanagh has just been handed 6 more after a failed plot to reduce his sentence. Thomas Kavanagh, now aged 57, has been given a strict deadline of 3 months to hand over a substantial sum of money to the authorities. Should he fail to meet this requirement, he will not only continue to serve his existing sentence, but will also have an additional 12 years added to his time behind bars. Kavanagh is far from an ordinary prisoner. In March 2022, he was handed a 21-year prison term after being found guilty of masterminding the importation of enormous quantities of drugs into the United Kingdom. The shipments he arranged had a combined street value estimated at a staggering £30 million. His criminal activities were not limited to narcotics. He openly admitted to playing a significant role in the illegal trafficking of firearms and to laundering vast amounts of illicit money generated by the gang's operations. One of Kavanagh's key associates, 43-year-old Gary Vickery, was taken into custody back in October 2017 during an NCA, National Crime Agency, operation. His arrest followed a major seizure at the port of Dover, where officers uncovered a highly sophisticated concealment. Hidden inside a 6-ton industrial tarmac removal machine, they found 15 kilograms of cocaine and more than 220 kilograms of cannabis, all destined for the UK's black market. This interception proved to be a crucial turning point in the investigation, ultimately leading detectives to the real power behind the enterprise, Kavanagh himself. Acting on the intelligence gathered, officers arrested him at Birmingham Airport in January 2019, catching him as he stepped off a flight returning from a holiday. After securing convictions for Kavanagh and his associates, the NCA shifted focus from the gang's criminal operations to its financial empire. Using the Proceeds of Crime Act, investigators meticulously examined the syndicate's earnings and assets, determined to strip them of the wealth they had accumulated through years of illegal trade. According to their findings, Kavanagh's total criminal profits were believed to be around £12.2 million. However, only a fraction of that could be recovered, precisely £1,123,096.84. Among the assets identified were Kavanagh's half share of a heavily fortified luxury mansion in Tamworth, Staffordshire, as well as funds from the sale of several other properties in the UK and a lavish villa in Spain. When police first searched his home in 2019, they also discovered approximately £150,000 worth of high-end designer handbags, expensive clothing, and exclusive accessories, further highlighting the opulent lifestyle his criminal career had afforded him. Vickery, too, has faced similar financial penalties. Following the POCA hearing, he was ordered to repay £109,312.90 within 3 months, with the warning that failure to comply would result in an additional 2 years being added to his prison sentence. His previous court appearances had already seen him stripped of other luxury items, including an Audemars Piguet wristwatch valued at £75,000 and just over €100,000 in cash, which was seized from a hotel room during the dramatic operation that led to his arrest. In October 2024, Thomas Kavanagh, already serving a lengthy prison term for his leading role in one of the UK's most prolific organised crime operations, found himself back in court facing fresh and deeply serious charges. This time, he admitted to further firearms offenses and to attempting to pervert the course of justice, after investigators from the National Crime Agency, NCA, uncovered an audacious and carefully orchestrated scheme he had devised from within his prison cell. The plot, which Kavanagh believed could drastically reduce his sentence, was as bold as it was deceitful. He instructed 2 of his most trusted allies, Sean Kent and Liam Byrne, to secretly acquire a cache of firearms and ammunition. Once purchased, the weapons were to be buried in carefully chosen hiding places. The plan was for Kavanagh to later cooperate, with law enforcement by revealing the exact locations of the concealed arsenal, presenting himself as someone aiding investigations, and thereby convincing the authorities to grant him a substantial reduction in his jail time. However, his manipulation of the justice system failed spectacularly. The NCA's investigation laid bare every detail of the plan, and the consequences were severe. All three men involved were brought before the court and sentenced to a combined total of 17 years in prison. For Kavanagh, this meant an additional 6 years to be served consecutively to the 21-year term he was already enduring, further ensuring that his prospects of freedom would be pushed far into the future. Commenting on the case, Kay Mellor, head of Operations HQ at the NCA, emphasized just how significant Kavanagh's role had been in Britain's criminal underworld. She described him as the head of the UK branch of the Kinahan organized crime syndicate, a network that had made staggering sums of money through the large-scale importation and distribution of both drugs and firearms. Mellor noted that Kavanagh and his associates had once believed themselves to be beyond the reach of the law, operating with a sense of invincibility. Yet, in her words, that very arrogance proved to be their undoing. With both Kavanagh and his associate Gary Vickery now locked away for many years, and with over £1 million in criminal proceeds being stripped from them, Mellor affirmed the agency's determination to keep pressing forward. She pledged that the NCA would continue deploying every available legal and operational tool to pursue, dismantle, and financially cripple organized crime groups, ensuring they face full accountability for their actions. Adrian Foster, chief Crown prosecutor, also addressed the outcome, characterizing both Kavanagh and Vickery as dangerous figures entrenched in the world of organized crime, who had been responsible for importing dangerous drugs into the UK on an industrial scale, generating millions in illicit profits. Foster pointed to the recent £1 million confiscation order as clear proof of the justice system's commitment to working across borders to ensure that the wealth accumulated through criminality is stripped away. He warned that failure to comply with such financial penalties would inevitably lead to further prison terms. Highlighting the wider success of these measures, Foster revealed that in the past 5 years alone, more than £478 million had been recovered through confiscation orders secured by the Crown Prosecution Service, preventing thousands of convicted offenders from enjoying the spoils of their crimes. Of that total, £95 million had been returned directly to victims in the form of compensation, underscoring the principle that justice is not only about punishment, but also about reparation for those harmed.